photographer has a few options if they want to shoot pictures in the infrared spectrum. And one of the options, although it's not a true infrared, is Ilford's SFX200. So it's an infrared-like film, not totally in the infrared spectrum, but it's worth giving a try. And I'm going to show you some of the results that I've got with it. My name is Rob Skeoch. I'm a career photographer. I've been shooting film for decades. I shot digital for decades. Now I've gone back to film, and I'm having so much fun shooting film, processing my own film, working in the darkroom. Now, this film that I want to talk about today is the Ilford SFX200. So you can use it without an infrared effect, or you can have an infrared effect depending on the filter that you use. So let me talk about that for a second. So the film itself is about ISO, well, it's ISO 200. You might overexpose it a little bit, but that's the great starting point. And I was processing it with, you can use different developers. ID11 is a great developer. There's a couple others from Ilford, Xtol from Kodak. Those are great kind of standard developers that you can use with this film. So Ilford SFX200. Now this particular picture, this was shot with a 50mm lens from a bridge. And this is kind of the old mill, sort of where I live area. And this first shot has no filter on it. So this is thinking of it as just a conventional black and white film. Now, you can see that the mill itself is kind of a mid-tone gray. So we're not going to see much of an adjustment with the filters in that mid-tone gray. We're going to see mostly the adjustment in the trees and in the sky. Even the water, it goes a little bit darker, but I think that's probably a reflection of the sky. So this is the film, no filter. Now, I would say it's a little grainier and doesn't have the same resolution quality as, say, Delta 100. Maybe that makes sense. It's a 200 speed film. It should be a little grainier, but I would say it's not as fine as Delta 100. And if I was looking for a fine grain film, high resolution for normal black and white photography, I would probably take the Delta over the SFX 200. So with no filter, it's really a conventional film, and you've got conventional tones, as you can see in this photo of the mill. So this next shot is with a yellow filter. They call it a B+W 022, but any yellow filter will give you the same result. So with the yellow filter, you're going to have to open up a little bit, give a bit of a filter factor. Maybe it's one stop, maybe it's a half a stop. You'll want to experiment around with that a little bit. But let's say you're going to give it a half a stop or one stop filter factor. You're going to give that much more exposure to it. Now, maybe you can go right through with the lens with your meter. I'm not convinced that the meters see the colors the same. So you'll have to see how your mileage varies. I find that through the lens metering doesn't give me enough compensation, but your mileage may vary. Now, with this yellow filter, you see that the sky is going darker and the trees are going lighter. So that's kind of a great effect. So if you're doing landscape and you want this darkened sky, now a dark sky works best if there's white clouds, because if the sky is white or gray in your photo and the clouds are white or gray, it doesn't really give you any relief or contrast between the two of them. But if you can darken the sky and still have those white clouds, then all of a sudden you can see them. So that's kind of the point of darkening the sky. But this film with the 022, it still is looking like a conventional black and white film at this point. But it is, lightening the trees and darkening the sky a bit. Now this next shot is with the orange filter. So again, you need to compensate a bit with the filter factor. And again, it is continuing on that trend of darkening the sky, lightening the trees. With that orange filter, we're definitely starting to get those great effects that we're looking for, which is why you shoot black and white, is to see these various effects. So you can shoot it with no filter, yellow filter, orange filter. Now this is the final filter that I tested, and this is called an 092, B+W 092, or infrared. So I've got it on my camera. It is dark. I mean, it's dark red. It is kind of black. So let me just show you here. I'll take it off. But it is a dark filter. Now, when you use this on an SLR, you have to focus and compose before you put the filter on, because you won't see anything through the viewfinder. It's that dark. It's probably like a neutral density, maybe 5 or 6. So it is red, but it looks black, and it cuts out a lot of light. So I use it on a rangefinder because with a rangefinder, I can still focus on my subject. I can still compose because I'm not looking through the lens. If I was looking through the lens and it had gone 5 stops too dark or darker, I wouldn't be able to see the picture. I wouldn't be able to accurately focus. So that's one of the great things about using, a rangefinder camera or a twin lens camera, like the old Rolleis, because the filter would only be on that the taking lens and not the viewing lens. So I like to shoot it with a rangefinder when I shoot infrared for that reason. When I put them on the Hasselblad, you have to pre-focus. Now, with this film, you don't really have to adjust the lens to the infrared setting. You could kind of go halfway. It's not a true infrared, and it kind of gives you a weird effect. So this is the shot, of course, with the infrared filter. Now, this infrared filter, as I said, this film isn't true infrared. This filter is really dark, and the effect kind of goes weird and flat. So I don't love it. I think you could probably dig a better printout of here, but overall, I wasn't really that excited to see it in this infrared spectrum. So your mileage may vary. It's an interesting film to try. If you're shooting black and white and you want to try some new films, this SFX200 from Ilford, that would be worth trying. That's worth giving a go. I actually think if I wanted a true infrared, I might lean more towards the Rollei infrared, which is not always available. The Ilford is relatively easy to get because Ilford's sold in most countries. They're based out of England. The Rollei is not sold everywhere. It's sold in Canada, though, and I'm sure it's available in the States. So if I wanted a truer infrared, I would shoot the Rollei. But if I'm just wanting to play with a new film, try out this SFX. Now, one thing I haven't done, I've heard it is great, though, great effect, is if you use a light red filter, which I don't have a light red filter, but if you use a light red filter, pink, I guess, for portraits of women, I've heard it's very effective for really kind of having the skin go that kind of white look that people like for fashion work. So I haven't tried it. I don't shoot a lot of women models, but it might be worth trying. If you're shooting fashion or women models, just try a roll of this SFX, and with some kind of filter, maybe a light pink or a light red or a light orange, not dramatic, but just to try to lighten that texture of that skin. I heard it goes really beautiful on the skin tones. Anyways, it's worth giving a try. Just saying.